So this video is on something called Trig Complements. Remember, if two angles are complementary, they add up to 90 degrees, so keep that in mind. All right, in any right triangle, there's obviously a right angle. So you've got a right triangle, and that means it's got one right angle. So what must be the sum of these other two angles? Take a minute and think about that. If this is 90, what's left for these two? Hopefully you've had time to think about that. So we've got 180 degrees for all three angles in the triangle. That's the triangle sum theorem. So if I take out 90, that leaves another 90. That 90 is going to be split between these two. So basically, if this is angle A and this is angle B, I know that A and B add up to 90 degrees. It may be split evenly, like 45-45, or maybe something else, like 30-60, those add up to 90, or 20 and 70, or even like 1 degree and 89 degrees, but they have to add up to 90. So these two angles in a right triangle are complementary. They always add up to 90. So just again to write all that out, if this were angle theta, remember theta is just like an x, it's just a variable that represents an angle. So if this were theta, then this would be 90 minus whatever theta is. Again, we call them complements because they're complementary. They add to 90 degrees. All right, so let's do a little exploring here. Again, angle A and angle B, these are Greek letters, by the way, add up to 90 degrees. And let's do some exploring. So the sine of angle A, we know we have so, ka, toa. So the sine is the opposite over hypotenuse. If I'm looking at angle A, this is the opposite, and that's the hypotenuse. So it would be x over z. The cosine of angle A would be the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So that would be the adjacent side, y over z. All right, now let's look at angle B. If I find the sine of angle B, if I'm looking at angle B, then this is the opposite side, and that's the hypotenuse still. So y over z would be sine. Cosine is, once again, adjacent over hypotenuse, but if I'm looking at angle B, this is the adjacent side that's touching angle B. So it would be adjacent over hypotenuse, x over z. What do you notice about some of these? So you may notice that this is the same as this. And also these two, this one is the same as this one. And that's no accident. That's because the sine of angle A is the opposite over hypotenuse, and the cosine of angle B is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. But basically, the opposite side for angle A is the same as the adjacent side for angle B. See, look, the opposite side for angle A is x, but x is the adjacent side for angle B. And so basically, the sine of one angle is always going to equal the cosine of the other. Same thing here, the sine of one angle equals the cosine of the other. That will always happen. So here's that kind of written out if you want to put this in your notes. If this is angle A and that's angle B, the sine of angle A equals the cosine of angle B, or vice versa. Also keep in mind, angle A plus angle B equals 90. This is going to allow us to solve some problems very quickly. For example, if I knew the sine of angle 50 is equal to the cosine of 40. That's because these have to add up to 90 degrees. And I know the sine of one equals the cosine of the other. basically this always works as long as these two add up to 90 degrees. I know that the cosine of 2 degrees is the same thing as the sine of 88 degrees. Again, as long as they add up to 90, that would work in a right triangle. Like if this were 2 degrees and this were 88 degrees, I know it's very much not to scale. Basically, this one's opposite side would be the same as this one's adjacent side. And so the cosine of one equals the sine of the other. So here's the practice that you guys are going to work on. I'll do the first one for you, but it's very straightforward. So find the value for theta that makes this statement true. Again, as long as they add up to 90, it works. So the sine of what equals the cosine of 25, and that should have degrees on it. As long as they add up to 90, it works. So like what plus 25 equals 90? Basically just take 90, subtract 25, and you get 65. And that's it. Theta is 65 degrees. Because the sine of 65 degrees and the cosine of 25 degrees, these two angles are complementary. So that's it. That's the answer. I'll let you try the rest of that practice on your own.